I never thought of myself as the jealous or suspicious type. My wife, Alara, and I had been married for 7 years, and while life wasn't perfect, we had trust. At least, that's what I believed, until the late night started. It began gradually. She'd stay at the office later than usual, saying she had deadlines to meet. At first, I didn't question it. Alara was dedicated to her job, and I admired that about her. But what started as a rare late night soon became more frequent. 3 nights a week, then 4, sometimes the whole week. At first, I ignored the nagging feeling in my gut. She had always been ambitious. But something about the way she spoke when she told me she'd be late, it felt too rehearsed, too careful. Then came the night I decided to surprise her. I ordered takeout from her favorite Thai place and drove to her office. I was excited, thinking she'd be touched by the gesture. But when I arrived, the building was nearly empty. Her department's floor was completely dark. I frowned and checked my watch. 10:47 p.m. 30 minutes earlier, she had texted me. Still at work. Don't wait up, babe. I pulled out my phone and called her. She picked up after 3 rings. Hey, babe, she said, sounding rushed. Still swamped here. Gonna be another late one. I looked up at the dark windows. Oh, yeah? Where exactly in the office are you? A pause. A second too long. Same as always. Why? I felt my stomach drop. No reason, I said, forcing my voice to stay neutral. Just missed you. I hung up before she could say anything else. My hands clenched around the steering wheel as I stared at the empty building. I wanted to believe there was an explanation, that she was working in another section, that I was overreacting. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. That night, she came home past midnight. She smelled different, not like her usual perfume, but something else, a scent I couldn't place. Her hair was slightly messy, her makeup less fresh than it should have been after sitting at a desk all evening. I wanted to ask. I wanted to confront her right then. But I hesitated. What if I was wrong? What if I accused my wife of something awful, only to realize it was all in my head? I let it go, but the feeling wouldn't leave me. A week later, I found the clue that shattered my trust. Alara had recently gotten into fitness. She wore her smartwatch religiously, tracking her steps, calories, and workouts. She'd always sync it to her phone and show me her progress. That morning, while she was in the shower, I noticed her smartwatch charging on the nightstand. A thought hit me. I grabbed her phone, opened the fitness app, and checked her activity from the previous night. My heart started pounding. Between 10:30 p.m. and midnight, she had burned over 400 calories. Her heart rate had spiked multiple times. But she had told me she was at the office, sitting at a desk. I scrolled further, my breath catching in my throat. The app had location tracking for workouts. I tapped the map and watched as a red pin dropped onto the screen. She wasn't at her office last night. She had been somewhere else. Somewhere she didn't want me to know about. I zoomed in on the location. It wasn't far, only about 15 minutes away from our house. But it wasn't an office building or a gym. It was a residential address. My hands trembled as I copied the address into Google Maps. The search results loaded within seconds. A house. A small, modern house in a quiet neighborhood. A sinking feeling spread through my chest. I checked her workout history from previous nights. The same pattern appeared. Every time she had told me she was working late, her smartwatch had recorded intense physical activity at that same address. I locked her phone and put it back just as I heard the shower turn off. My mind was spinning. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. A few minutes later, she walked into the bedroom, towel wrapped around her body, smiling like everything was normal. Morning, she said, kissing my cheek. You okay? I forced a smile. Yeah, just thinking. She didn't notice the way my hands trembled, because I had just realized my wife was lying to me, and I had no idea why. I barely slept that night. My mind wouldn't stop replaying everything I had discovered. The fitness tracker data, the false location, the late nights. I kept trying to convince myself there had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe she was visiting a friend. Maybe she had joined some kind of private fitness class and just didn't tell me. But deep down, I knew that was a lie. No one burns 400 calories at midnight in a random house without a reason. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table, scrolling aimlessly through my phone while stealing glances at her. Ilera acted completely normal, smiling, sipping her coffee, responding to messages like nothing was wrong. It made me sick. If she could look me in the eye and lie so effortlessly, then how long had she been doing this? How much of our life together was built on deception? When she grabbed her keys, I forced my voice to stay even. Another late night? She hesitated for only a second before nodding. Yeah, end of quarter reports. It's a nightmare. I clenched my jaw. Don't work too hard. She gave me a quick kiss and walked out the door, leaving me sitting there with my hands gripping my coffee mug so tightly I thought it might crack. The second she was gone, I grabbed my phone, pulled up the address I had found the night before, and got in my car. I needed to see it with my own eyes. The house was in a quiet neighborhood about 15 minutes away. It was small but well kept, with a black sedan parked in the driveway. Nothing about it seemed special, but that was the problem. It wasn't an office, it wasn't a gym, it wasn't a place she had any reason to be at. My stomach churned as I pulled over a few houses down. I didn't know what I was expecting to find, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't leaving until I got answers. I waited for hours, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my fingers started to ache. The thought of confronting whoever lived here burned in the back of my mind, but I knew I needed proof first. And then, just past 10 p.m., her car appeared. My pulse pounded as I watched her slow down, turn into the driveway, and park. I felt like I was going to be sick. She stepped out of the car, dressed in leggings and a fitted tank top, workout clothes. My stomach twisted into knots as I realized she had never dressed like that for work. She walked up to the door and knocked, and seconds later, a man answered. He was tall, fit, probably in his mid-30s. Even from a distance, I could see the way his face lit up when he saw her, the way she smiled at him. My hands tightened into fists as I watched her step inside without hesitation, the door shutting behind him. I sat frozen, my heart hammering in my chest, my mind screaming at me to do something, to get out of the car and rip that door open, but I didn't move. I couldn't, because no matter how badly I wanted to tell myself there was some logical explanation, I knew the truth. She had lied. Again. And now I had proof. I drove home in a daze, my mind spiraling in a million directions. How long had this been going on? Who was this guy? A coworker? A personal trainer? How many nights had I spent at home, thinking she was working, while she was with him? The thought made me grip the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The moment I got home, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went through her phone. I waited until she was in the shower, my hands shaking as I unlocked her screen and went to her messages. At first, nothing. Just the usual text with friends and co-workers. Nothing suspicious. Then, I checked her deleted messages. And that's where I found him. The text had no name, just a number. But the conversation was all there. Him. Same time tonight? Ilera. Yeah, can't wait. Him. You always leave me breathless. Ilera. You're the best part of my day. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. I kept scrolling. There were messages stretching back for months. Flirty, teasing, sometimes downright suggestive. My vision blurred as I read them. Him. I still think about last time. The way you... I couldn't read the rest. My hands were shaking too much. I put the phone down, chest heaving. It wasn't just a suspicion anymore. It wasn't paranoia. My wife was having an affair. I heard the shower turn off. I barely had time to lock her phone and place it back before she stepped out of the bathroom. towel drying her hair. "Hey," she said, giving me that same warm smile. "You okay? You look pale." I stared at her, my mind screaming with everything I had just read. I forced myself to swallow. "Yeah, just tired." She kissed my cheek. "Get some rest, babe." I nodded, but inside, I was falling apart. I needed to figure out what to do next, because now there was no turning back. I barely made it through the next day without losing it. Every time I looked at Alara, all I could see were the messages. "You always leave me breathless. You're the best part of my day." Words meant for him, not me. She spent the morning acting completely normal, scrolling through her phone while sipping coffee, laughing at whatever was on the screen. Meanwhile, I sat across from her, barely able to keep myself together, knowing she had been in another man's house just hours ago. I felt like a stranger in my own marriage. By the time she left for work, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to sit around and wait for more lies. I was going to catch her in the act. That evening, I told her I was heading to bed early. She kissed me on the cheek, told me not to wait up, and walked out the door like nothing was wrong. As soon as I heard her car pull away, I jumped up, grabbed my keys, and followed her. I stayed a few cars behind, keeping my headlights off whenever possible. The city lights reflected off her windshield as she drove, not toward her office, but toward the house. I knew where she was going before she even turned onto a street. I parked farther down this time, out of sight, and watched as she got out of the car. She was dressed in the same leggings and tank top from the night before. This time, I was closer. She knocked, and within seconds, he was at the door. The way he looked at her made my blood boil. His hand brushed against her lower back as he led her inside, his body language so casual, so familiar, like this wasn't the first time they'd done this. I gripped the steering wheel, my breathing shallow. I had seen the messages. I had read their words. But watching it happen in real time, that was different. That was unbearable. I needed to confront her. Now. I got out of the car and walked toward the house, my pulse pounding in my ears. My hands were shaking, but I didn't stop. I didn't care what I walked into. I just knew I couldn't let this go on any longer. Before I could reach the door, I noticed movement at the window. I stepped back, pressing myself against the shadows near the garage. Through the blinds, I could see them. They weren't kissing. Not yet. But the way she smiled at him, the way he leaned in just a little too close, the way their hands brushed as she spoke, it made me sick. I forced myself to wait, to watch, to let the reality sink in. There was no denying it now. She wasn't here for work. She wasn't here for some late-night training session. She was with him. My stomach twisted into knots. I wanted to barge in, to scream, to throw punches until my knuckles bled. But instead, I pulled out my phone. If she wanted to lie to me, I was going to make sure she could never do it again. I hit record and held my phone up, capturing everything. The way she touched his arm, the way he brushed her hair behind her ear, the way she laughed, her head tilting just slightly as she leaned into him. I didn't need more. I had proof. My hands were ice cold as I lowered the phone. I could barely breathe. I had always imagined that, if I ever caught her cheating, I'd burst in and catch them red-handed. I'd scream, I'd rage, I'd demand answers. But standing there, watching my wife act like a lovesick teenager with another man, I realized something. She had already chosen. She had made this choice months ago, and I had been nothing but an afterthought. I turned and walked back to my car, my head spinning. By the time I reached home, my decision was made. She came home at 12:47 a.m. I was sitting in the living room, waiting. She walked in, tossing her bag onto the chair, stretching like she had just finished a long, exhausting day. And then she saw me. She froze. "You're up." I nodded, gripping my phone in my hands. My heart was racing, but I kept my face neutral. "How was work?" I asked. Her expression didn't change. Long. I'm exhausted. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay calm. Where were you, Alara? She blinked. What do you mean? I told you. I had reports to finish. I tilted my head. At the office? Of course, she said, laughing nervously. Why are you asking me like this? I stared at her, my grip tightening around my phone. Because you weren't at the office. Her face paled, but she forced a smile. Malric, what are you talking about? I unlocked my phone and turned the screen toward her. The video played. Her, him, laughing, touching, smiling. Her expression shattered in an instant. She didn't even breathe as she watched herself on the screen. I paused the video. Try again, I said quietly. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I stood up, towering over her. Do you have any idea what it's like to feel crazy? To sit at home wondering why your wife suddenly works late every night? To fight the part of yourself that doesn't want to believe she's lying to you? Tears welled in her eyes. Malric, save it. I snapped. I don't want to hear excuses. I want the truth. She looked away. It wasn't supposed to happen. I let out a bitter laugh. Oh, spare me. You don't accidentally end up in another man's house at midnight. You don't accidentally tell him he's the best part of your day. You chose this, Alara. She covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. I don't know why I did it, she whispered. I clenched my jaw. You knew exactly why. You just didn't think you'd get caught. She sobbed harder, her entire body trembling. I love you, Malric. I never wanted to hurt you. I stared at her, feeling nothing but emptiness. You already did. I turned, walking toward the stairs. She reached for me. Wait, please, just talk to me. I pulled away. Tomorrow, I said coldly, I decide if I still want to be your husband. Her sobs filled the room as I walked away. And for the first time in 7 years, I felt like a free man. I barely slept that night. Even after confronting Alara, even after watching her break down in front of me, I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No relief. Just emptiness. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to her muffled sobs from the living room. She didn't even try to come upstairs. By morning, I had made my decision. When I walked downstairs, she was still there, curled up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, looking like she hadn't slept either. Her eyes were swollen, her face pale. The second she saw me, she sat up. Malric, her voice cracked. Please, talk to me. I sat across from her, resting my elbows on my knees, staring at my hands. I could feel her watching me, waiting for me to say something, anything. I want to know the truth, I said finally, my voice low and steady. No more lies. No more half-truths. If you have any respect left for me, you'll tell me everything. Right now. She swallowed hard, nodding. Okay. I took a deep breath. How long? She looked down at her hands. 6 months. I clenched my jaw, my hands tightening into fists. 6 months. Half a year. While I had been going about my life, trusting her, she had been sneaking off with him. Who is he? I asked. She hesitated. His name is Callan. He's a personal trainer. I met him at the gym. I scoffed. And what? You just clicked. She winced but nodded. At first, it was innocent. He was just helping me with my workouts, giving me advice. Then we started texting, and I don't know. It escalated. I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. It escalated? That's what you're calling this. Tears welled in her eyes. I know it sounds like an excuse, but I never meant to hurt you, Malric. I didn't plan this. I wasn't looking for it. Looking for it or not, you sure as hell didn't stop it, I shot back. She flinched, her shoulders shaking. I was selfish. I let myself get swept up in it, and then it was too late. I leaned forward, Too late for what? To tell me the truth? To stop? Her silence was answer enough. I let out a slow breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. Did you love him? She shook her head frantically. No, no, I swear. It was never about love. It was an escape. An escape from what? She hesitated, then whispered, from feeling like I was disappearing. I stared at her, my chest tightening. You didn't disappear, Alara. You just stopped looking at me. Her face crumpled, and she covered her mouth with her hands, sobbing. I let the silence stretch between us, letting her sit in it, letting her feel it. You destroyed everything, I said finally. Everything we built. And for what? A thrill? A distraction? She wiped at her eyes, shaking her head. I was lost, Malric. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know that I regret it more than anything. I sighed, running a hand down my face. So what now? What do you expect me to do? She took a shaky breath. I want to fix this. I want to fight for us. I'll do whatever it takes. Therapy, quitting the gym, cutting him out of my life completely. Anything. I studied her, searching for deception. But all I saw was raw desperation. But was it enough? I don't know if I can do this, I admitted. I don't know if I want to. She reached out, her fingers trembling. Please, don't walk away from us. Not yet. I hesitated. The logical part of me screamed to leave, to walk away and never look back. But another part of me, the part that had spent 7 years loving her, wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. One condition, I said finally. If we do this, if I even try to move past this, there can be no more lies. No more secrets. You tell me everything, and we go to therapy, together and separately. She nodded quickly. Yes, anything. I swear, Malric. I'll do whatever it takes. I exhaled slowly. Then I guess we'll see if there's anything left to save. Her face crumpled with relief, but I didn't comfort her, because deep down, I wasn't sure if I had just given her a chance to fix us, or given myself more time to realize we were already broken. The next few weeks felt like walking through a battlefield, dodging the landmines of my own emotions. One moment I thought maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild. The next, I felt the overwhelming urge to pack my things and leave without looking back. Alara kept to her word. She deleted Callan's number in front of me, blocked him, quit the gym entirely. She found a couples therapist, booked sessions for both of us, even started seeing one on her own. She was doing everything she could to prove she wanted to fix this. But the problem wasn't just her. It was me. I didn't know how to forgive her. I didn't know if I wanted to. Every time I looked at her, I saw him. The way she smiled at him. The way she touched his arm. The way she told him he was the best part of her day. I could feel her waiting for me to soften, waiting for some kind of sign that I was still hers. But I wasn't sure if I ever would be again. One night, after another tense, quiet dinner, she finally broke. Malric, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Are you ever going to let me back in? I didn't answer right away. I set my fork down, staring at my plate, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. I don't know, I admitted. Her face crumpled, but she nodded. I get it. I do. But she hesitated. How do I prove to you that I still love you? I exhaled slowly. That's not the problem, Alara. The problem is that I don't know if I love you anymore. Silence. A long, suffocating silence. She blinked rapidly, her breath hitching. You don't mean that? I met her eyes. I don't know if I do. She looked like I had just stabbed her in the chest. But what was I supposed to do? Lie? Pretend that I still saw her the way I used to? Pretend that every time she touched me, I didn't flinch? I've been trying, I continued, my voice tight. I really have. But I can't stop thinking about what you did. And I don't think I'll ever look at you the same way again. Her hands clenched in her lap. So that's it, she whispered. You're giving up? I ran a hand down my face, exhausted. You already gave up on us. 6 months ago. You just didn't realize it. Tears streamed down her face, but I didn't move to comfort her. I couldn't. I made a mistake, she choked out. A horrible, selfish, unforgivable mistake. But you know that's not who I am. You know that I love you, that I've always loved you. I clenched my jaw. Then why did you do it? I don't know, she sobbed. I don't know, Malric. I've asked myself that every single day since you found out, and I hate myself for it. I would take it all back if I could. I swear to God, I would. I looked away, my heart hammering in my chest. You're right, she whispered. I gave up on us first, but I came back. I chose you. You chose me when you got caught, I shot back. She flinched. That's not fair. I laughed bitterly. Fair? You want to talk about fair? What's fair about me sitting at home like an idiot while you were sneaking off to another man's house? Her lip trembled. I can't take it back, but I can spend the rest of my life proving to you that I still belong to you, that I still want us. I swallowed hard. But what if I don't want that anymore? Her breath hitched, her face paling. Then tell me, she said, voice shaking. Tell me right now if you're done, because I can't keep hoping for something that isn't real. The words were on the tip of my tongue, but I hesitated. I still loved the memories, the life we built, the way we used to be. But was love enough? I looked at her, really looked at her, her tear-streaked face, the way her hands trembled, the sheer desperation in her eyes. And I knew she would never hurt me again, not because she loved me, but because she couldn't survive losing me twice. I exhaled slowly. I need time. Her lip trembled, but she nodded. Okay, she whispered. But I can't promise anything, I added. She inhaled shakily. I'll take whatever you can give me. I stood up, running a hand through my hair. I need some air. She didn't try to stop me as I grabbed my jacket and stepped outside. The night was cold, crisp. I stood on the porch, staring at the empty street, feeling everything and nothing all at once. I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over my contacts. Who was I supposed to call? My best friend? My brother? Instead, I opened my notes app, and I started writing. I listed everything I felt, every reason to stay, every reason to leave, every fear, every doubt, every moment I still loved her, every moment I still hated her. By the time I finished, I realized something. There was no right answer. There was no winning. No matter what I chose, I would be losing something. I closed my phone, shoving it into my pocket. Then I walked back inside. Ilara was still sitting at the table, staring at the untouched dinner plates. She looked up when she heard me, hope flashing across her face for just a second. I took a deep breath, and I made my choice. I walked over to her, pulled out a chair, and sat down across from her. Her hands trembled as she reached for mine, but I didn't pull away. This isn't going to be easy, I said quietly. She nodded, swallowing hard. I know. I don't know if I'll ever forgive you, I admitted. She squeezed her eyes shut. I understand, but I sighed. I think I want to try. Her breath hitched, and for the first time in weeks, real tears filled her eyes. Tears of relief, not guilt. I will spend every single day making this right, she whispered. I know, I said. We sat there in silence, the weight of our broken marriage pressing down on us. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be the same. But for now, I was willing to see if love could survive betrayal. And that was enough.